The declaration. The galaxy had always been vast, mysterious, and for most civilizations intimidating. But for humanity, it was merely another frontier to explore. That confidence, bordering on audacity, had earned them admirers, skeptics, and now enemies. In the heart of the Andromeda sector, atop the crystalline spires of the Galactic Council's capital, the most powerful leaders in known space gathered. The council chambers were a marvel of alien architecture, a vast dome of translucent energy, where every thought and intention could be projected visually. Light danced along the walls in complex patterns, reflecting the consciousness of every representative present. Every corner hummed with a low, resonant frequency, a reminder that this was not a place where mortal beings could hide weakness. At the center of the chamber, Ambassador Zyril of the Hierarchith species rose from his levitating platform. His 4 eyes scanned the assembly, each eye reflecting a different part of the galaxy simultaneously. He exhaled slowly, a sound like wind passing through hollow metal tubes, and the hall fell silent. Even the usually boisterous representatives of the Velithrians and Ophiarchs tensed in anticipation. Humans, Zyril began, his voice echoing with authority, have crossed the boundaries we established for civilized behavior in the galaxy. Their relentless expansion, their reckless experimentation with interstellar travel, and their unpredictability have become a threat, not just to themselves but to all intelligent life. A ripple ran through the chamber. The representatives murmured among themselves, their holographic projections flickering as they exchanged opinions. Some feared humanity's potential. Others admired it, though they would never admit it openly. Zyril raised his appendage, an elegant, segmented limb tipped with shimmering crystals, and the room fell silent again. After extensive deliberation, the Council has concluded, Earth must be contained. If compliance is not immediate, we will enforce our will through war. The words hung in the chamber like a physical weight. Every species present understood the gravity. The Council's declaration was not idle talk. It was a sentence pronounced across millions of star systems, a verdict that could ignite a war unlike any seen in recorded history. Meanwhile, light years away, humanity was predictably going about its daily life. On the orbital city of Nova Prime, millions of humans moved with purpose, oblivious to the deliberations of alien councils. Spaceports buzzed with the departure and arrival of ships, holographic advertisements flickered on every surface, and children raced hovercars down the neon-lit streets. In the control tower of Earth's Global Space Command, Captain Kale Varn observed the incoming message with a mix of curiosity and amusement. Kale, a seasoned veteran of interstellar diplomacy, was known for his calm demeanor, even in situations where lesser beings would panic. His brown eyes, sharp and observant, scanned the decoded message from the Galactic Council. "They're serious," murmured Lieutenant Reyna Sol, his second in command. Her voice held the edge of concern that Kale found mildly entertaining. "They've declared war. Do you think humanity is ready?" Kale leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "Ready? Perhaps not in the way they imagine. But humans always find a way. Fear is not our strongest weapon. Curiosity is, and defiance follows naturally." Across the city, news networks were already broadcasting the Council's declaration. Humanity, the galaxy's newest and most unpredictable species, was being condemned by an organization that had maintained peace for millennia. Every news anchor, every automated report, emphasized the same grim reality: Earth was under threat. Yet, instead of fear, a strange optimism began to ripple across human society. Scientists analyzed alien technology with excitement, engineers brainstormed new starship designs, and ordinary citizens, students, artists, shopkeepers, shared ideas about how humanity could respond. There was laughter in the labs, chatter in the cafes, and even jokes in the parliament halls. The message from the Council had not paralyzed humanity, it had invigorated them. Back at Global Space Command, Kale convened his senior officers. The room smelled faintly of metal polish and recycled air, lined with star maps and holographic displays of fleets across the solar system. Chief Strategist Leora Zane stood at the head of the table, her presence commanding attention. Leora had a reputation for brilliance and composure. Her short silver hair reflected the soft glow of the holoscreen, and her eyes were sharp, always calculating, always observing. "We need to understand what we're facing," Leora said, pointing to a rotating hologram of the Galactic Council's fleet. "This isn't just a warning, they have the resources to enforce their threat. Hundreds of ships, armed with weapons that could obliterate continents. But here's the thing, they've underestimated us." Kale smiled. "Exactly. They think humans will panic, that we'll beg for mercy. But they don't understand the essence of our species. Humans don't respond to threats in the way most civilizations do. We adapt, we innovate, and sometimes, we smile. A murmur of agreement swept through the room. It was not arrogance, they knew the stakes were high. But humanity's defining trait had always been its audacity. Where others saw danger, humans saw challenge. Where others saw impossible odds, humans saw opportunity. That night, as the twin moons of Earth reflected silver light across the oceans, Kale stood on the observation deck of the Elysium, humanity's flagship. The city below sparkled like a field of stars, unaware of the interstellar storm gathering in the distance. Beside him, Luma, the AI companion integrated into the ship, projected a soft glow, her voice calm but analytical. They expect fear, Luma said. Their sensors indicate that human populations are maintaining normal activity, with some displaying signs of mild amusement at the Council's threat. Kale chuckled. Exactly. They expect submission. They'll be disappointed. He stared at the distant stars, imagining the Council's fleet moving through the void, thinking it could intimidate a species that thrived on uncertainty and defiance. They have no idea what's coming, he whispered. Below, humanity slept and worked, laughed and loved. They did not yet know the full scale of the challenge ahead, but they did know one thing. No threat, no matter how vast, could break the spirit of their species. And when the galaxy expected fear, humanity would respond, not with surrender, not with despair, but with something far more powerful, a smile. The Council's threat. The silence of deep space is deceptive. It is a quiet that hides storms, wars, and the collision of civilizations. Yet, for the people of Earth, it was a silence that now carried the weight of impending danger. The Galactic Council had spoken, and their voice reverberated across light years, a warning as cold and unyielding as the void itself. On the bridge of the Elysium, Captain Kale Varn studied the approaching data streams. Holographic displays flickered with the movement of alien fleets, and each projection was a stark reminder of what awaited humanity if they failed. The Council's ships were unlike anything humans had faced before, sleek, towering vessels built from materials that shimmered with an unnatural brilliance, their surfaces constantly shifting as if alive. Lieutenant Reyna Sol leaned over a console, her fingers dancing across controls as she tracked the Council's progress. They're moving faster than predicted, she said. At this rate, their fleet will reach the outer solar system in 48 hours. Kale didn't respond immediately. He allowed himself a moment to observe the data, to let the enormity of the situation settle. Then almost casually he said, "Good. They're on schedule. That gives us time to surprise them." Across the galaxy, the Council's command centers buzzed with anticipation. General Threx, the Council's appointed warlord, paced along the bridge of the flagship Empyrean. His armor, forged from alloys that could withstand supernova-level energy, clinked with each step. His mandibles clicked in irritation as he surveyed the star systems on his holodisplay. "Do you see this, Zyril?" Threx demanded, turning to the ambassador. "They do not cower. They do not even slow their activities. Humanity continues to thrive as if we have not declared war against them." Ambassador Zyril's 4 eyes focused on Threx, the light reflecting off their crystalline surfaces. "That is precisely why I advised caution. Humans are unpredictable. They do not behave like other species. Their actions cannot be anticipated by conventional methods." "Unpredictable is dangerous," Threx snapped. "And dangerous is unacceptable. The Council has given them a chance. They have ignored it. They have chosen defiance. And now," he slammed his clawed hand onto the console, "they will pay." Back on Earth, the news of the Council's fleet moving toward the solar system spread like wildfire. Unlike other species who might succumb to fear, humanity responded in the way they always did, with determination and ingenuity. News stations, social networks, and even children's schools became hubs of brainstorming and preparation. Leora Zane convened a strategy meeting in the Earth Defense Command Central Chamber. Maps of the approaching fleet floated in the air, holographic representations of alien ships rotating slowly, showing weapon arrays and energy shields. "They think fear will weaken us," Leora began, her silver hair catching the light of the displays. "They're wrong. Fear is not humanity's primary tool. It is our creativity, our unpredictability, our refusal to surrender. And we will use it." Kale stood beside her, arms crossed. "They expect war in the traditional sense. Ships, weapons, battles. But humans are humans. We fight differently. Sometimes, the best weapon is not a weapon at all." Leora nodded. We will not wait for them to attack. We will send a message, a statement that will define our species in the galaxy. One they will not forget. One they cannot predict. On the Elysium, Kale and his crew began implementing Leora's plan. They sent out reconnaissance drones that shimmered with stealth technology, small enough to avoid detection yet sophisticated enough to analyze the Council's fleet. Engineers and scientists worked around the clock, developing countermeasures that were not designed for direct confrontation but for unpredictability and adaptability. Meanwhile, ordinary humans continued their own preparations. Students in orbital academies ran simulations, artists created psychological deterrence through massive holographic projections, and engineers tested new energy shields that could absorb and redirect alien attacks. Across Earth and its colonies, humanity worked, not in fear but in harmony, united by the knowledge that the universe expected them to falter, and they would not. As the Council's fleet advanced, General Threx grew impatient. "Send the vanguard," he ordered. "Strike the outer colonies first. Let them see the futility of resistance. Let them understand that defiance has consequences." Ambassador Zyril hesitated. Threx cautioned. "No." Threx's voice cut through the comms like a blade. "I am not here to negotiate. I am here to enforce. The humans must understand the cost of their audacity." The vanguard deployed and streaks of silver ships darted through space, a testament to alien engineering and precision. Their arrival in the outer solar system triggered alerts across human colonies, yet even as humans observed the massive fleet approaching, the response was not panic but preparation. Kale stood on the observation deck of the Elysium, gazing at the distant glint of alien metal. Beside him, Luma, the AI that had become his constant companion, spoke softly. "They are moving as expected. However, their approach patterns indicate overconfidence. Their assumption that humans will act predictably is flawed." Kale smiled, a glint of determination in his eyes. "Good. Let them be overconfident. That is the mistake that will cost them." Across the galaxy, the Council held an emergency session. "This species, they do not act as others do," Zyril admitted, frustration and awe mingling in his voice. "Our sensors indicate no panic, no surrender, no fear. They're calm, calculating, smiling even." Threx's eyes narrowed. "Smiling? They are supposed to fear us. They are supposed to beg. Instead he paused, visibly unsettled. "They are not afraid." "Yes," Zyril replied, his tone measured. "And that is the true danger. Fear can be controlled. Defiance can be crushed. But a species that does not fear, that species cannot be easily subdued." As the Council debated, Earth's citizens looked to the skies. Children imagined themselves as heroes in the upcoming trials, engineers refined their inventions, and leaders strategized not for surrender but for impact. Humanity's response to the looming threat was singular. They would meet intimidation not with panic but with ingenuity. In the quiet of his cabin on the Elysium, Kale made a note in his personal log. "The Council believes power is intimidation. They think fear will bring submission. They do not understand humans. We do not bend. We do not break. And when the time comes, we will show them exactly what that means." And somewhere in the immensity of space, the Council's fleet drew closer, unaware that the species they sought to intimidate was already preparing to turn their expectation of fear into something entirely unexpected. A human smile, clever, defiant, and unforgettable. Humanity's gambit. The darkness of space is often described as infinite, but for Captain Kale Varn and the crew of the Elysium, it was a canvas, one that could be painted with ingenuity, unpredictability, and the quiet brilliance of human determination. The Galactic Council's fleet, a menacing assembly of silver and obsidian warships, stretched across the void like a shadow creeping toward the solar system. They expected panic, hesitation, surrender. Instead, they would find strategy and defiance. Kale stood on the bridge, his eyes scanning the holographic displays of alien formations. The Council had underestimated humans from the start. Their calculations assumed fear would dictate action, that logic alone could control behavior. But humans were rarely bound by expectation. Humans thrived in unpredictability. "We've observed their fleet's approach," Lieutenant Reyna Sol reported. "Sensors confirm over 30 Vanguard warships entering the outer solar system. Standard engagement protocols ready. They are primed for battle but," she hesitated, her brow furrowed. "They seem confused by our non-traditional patterns." Kale smiled. "Good. Confusion is our advantage. Let's ensure it multiplies." Beside him, Chief Strategist Leora Zane tapped on her console, bringing up a new set of projections. The Council expects weapons. Weapons and conventional tactics. But humans fight differently. They innovate. They improvise. And they are about to demonstrate why unpredictability is the most powerful weapon in the universe. Humanity's gambit was not to confront the Council head-on. They would not attempt to match sheer firepower. They would redefine the rules of engagement entirely. Across Earth's orbital stations and colonies, scientists and engineers activated the first phase of the plan. Tiny probes, no larger than a human fist, blinked into life and shot into the void. Each carried advanced AI capable of independent thought, capable of tricking sensors, decoding alien communications and creating holographic illusions. In the command center, Kale observed the deployment. Phase 1 initiated, he said calmly. Let's give them something they won't see coming. The probes streaked silently through space, weaving between stars, invisible to all but the most advanced sensors. As they neared the Council's vanguard, they released arrays of holographic decoys, fleets of phantom warships, energy surges and false signals of human maneuvers. The effect was immediate. General Threx's console blared alarms. What is happening? Our scanners, they are reporting multiple fleets. Multiple humans and vectors we didn't detect. Ambassador Zyril, ever the voice of reason amidst Threx's fury, interjected. It is likely a technological interference, Threx. But it is sophisticated. They are not panicking. They are adapting. Threx roared in frustration. Adaptation is irrelevant. Destroy them. But even as the Council's fleet recalculated attack patterns, humans continued to innovate. On Earth, engineers unveiled a new type of energy shield capable of absorbing and redirecting energy blasts. Scientists developed decoy drones capable of mimicking human spacecraft perfectly, sending false coordinates and misleading the alien fleet. Every step was calculated, yet fluid, designed not to overpower the Council but to outthink them. Meanwhile, on the Elysium, Kale and Leora coordinated their gambit from orbit. Leora's fingers flew across her console, adjusting the quantum communication signals that would soon reach the Council's central command. This is the part they won't expect, she said, her eyes glinting. We're not just defending. We're sending them a message. Kale raised an eyebrow. A message? Leora smiled. Yes. Something uniquely human. Something that says, we see your power. We see your threat. And yet, we do not fear. With a series of keystrokes, Leora activated the signal. Across the galaxy at the Council's command center, every display flickered, then focused on a singular transmission. It was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. A puzzle of logic, creativity, and humor, encoded in quantum signals. Images appeared, showing impossible geometric shapes, fractals, and sequences that defied conventional understanding. A message scrolled slowly. Humans do not act predictably. Predict us and you fail. Fear is a choice. Curiosity is ours. Welcome to the game. For a moment, the chamber was silent. Zyril's 4 eyes blinked rapidly as he processed the transmission. Threx's claws tightened around the edge of his console, his mandibles clicking with frustration. They mock us with logic and games? They are not mocking, Zyril said carefully. They are demonstrating intelligence. Unpredictable intelligence. This is not surrender. This is a declaration of capability. The Council's fleet was a marvel of technology, but it had been designed to react, to calculate, to suppress. It had never faced an adversary who operated outside expectation, who turned threat into opportunity, and defiance into a statement of identity. Back on the Elysium, Kale and Leora watched the effects unfold. The Council's ships slowed, confused by the holographic decoys and the quantum puzzle. Energy readings fluctuated as their systems attempted to analyze the impossible. This is only the beginning, Kale said. They will learn that humans do not fear, humans do not panic, and humans think differently. Every move they make, every calculation will be met with something unexpected. We are not their opponents. We are their challenge. Reyna Sol looked at the bridge crew, her voice steady. And what do we do if they escalate? Kale's expression hardened, but there was a spark of amusement in his eyes. Then we escalate too. But on our terms. Not theirs. Across the galaxy, the Council convened an emergency session. Zyril's tone was a mixture of awe and apprehension. The humans, they are unpredictable. Their strategy does not rely on force alone. It relies on thought, on innovation. On defiance that cannot be calculated. Threx's eyes narrowed. Defiance will not suffice. They will learn fear. Zyril shook his head. Fear is only one weapon among many. But humans can operate without it. That is what makes them dangerous. As the council deliberated, humanity continued its gambit. Every step, every calculation, every creative maneuver reminded the galaxy that humans were not ordinary. They were a species capable of thinking beyond conventional limitations, capable of converting expectation into advantage, and capable of responding to threats not with terror, but with ingenuity. On the Elysium, Kale stood on the observation deck, gazing at the distant lights of the approaching fleet. Leora joined him, her voice quiet but firm. "They don't understand us," she said. "No," Kale replied. "And they never will. That's the point." And so, humanity's gambit unfolded, not as a fight of sheer power, but as a demonstration of the one thing the Galactic Council could never predict: the brilliance of a species that thrives on challenge, innovation, and the simple, fearless act of defiance. The galaxy had threatened war. Humanity had responded, not with surrender, but with a smile, a game, and a challenge that would echo through the stars. The Council underestimates. The Council had faced countless civilizations over the millennia, each believing themselves clever, each convinced that their mastery of technology or strategy would ensure dominance. They had conquered planets, subdued empires, and quelled rebellions with efficiency. And yet, as the human gambit unfolded, every assumption they had held about war, intelligence, and fear was being challenged. On the bridge of the Empyrean, General Threx paced like a caged predator. His claws scraped across the polished floor, resonating with tension. Screens flickered with the latest readings, human probes moving unpredictably, holographic decoys appearing and vanishing, and energy distortions that made entire fleets misread coordinates. Threx's anger grew, but so did his confusion. "They are defying logic," Threx snarled. "Every calculation we make, every maneuver they render useless. How is this possible? How can a species with so little history in interstellar warfare outthink us?" Ambassador Zyral's 4 eyes scanned the displays, his expression betraying a mixture of disbelief and cautious admiration. "It is not merely intelligence, Threx. It is unpredictability. Humans do not act like any species we have catalogued. Their responses are organic, adaptive, and often seemingly irrational. Yet, in their irrationality there is method." Threx growled, a low vibration that reverberated through the flagship. "Method? I see only chaos." "Chaos, with purpose," Zyral corrected. "That is what makes them dangerous." Meanwhile, the human fleet continued to operate like a well-oiled, yet improvisational machine. The Elysium coordinated multiple units, sending AI-driven probes and decoy ships to confuse the Council's sensors. Energy pulses reflected in unexpected ways, shielding systems redirected incoming fire harmlessly into empty space, and communication jammers scrambled the Council's coordination efforts. Leora Zane monitored the battle from the command console on the Elysium. Her eyes were sharp, analyzing every ripple in the Council's fleet behavior. "They think they can intimidate us with numbers," she said to Kale. "They believe quantity equals strength. But humans excel in quality, thinking, adapting, and improvising. Every move they make that seems overwhelming is an invitation to think differently." Kale leaned against the railing of the observation deck, a slight smile playing at his lips. "They expect predictable patterns, predictable reactions. That's their flaw. We're not predictable. That's humanity's advantage. And soon, they'll realize it." The Council, for all its technological mastery, began to falter. Small skirmishes at the outer colonies revealed that humans had anticipated every conventional maneuver. Alien warships aimed at what they believed to be vital targets found only decoys or empty corridors of space. Their weapons, calibrated for precision, repeatedly missed their mark. "Commander," Threx barked into the communication channel, "why are they so efficient? Why are our attacks failing?" Zyral's voice was calm but laced with concern. "They are using tactics that are unconventional. They exploit our assumptions, Threx. They anticipate what we will do based on our own logic. Every strike we plan is countered by unpredictability." Threx slammed his claw onto the console again. "I will not be undermined by a species that lacks centuries of military doctrine. Send the fleet, destroy them." But as the Council's fleet moved to comply, humans executed their next maneuver. Entire sectors of space appeared filled with massive human fleets. Vast armadas projected through advanced holographic technology, each ship identical to the last. The Council scrambled to engage, only to discover that every single ship was a mirage. Their sensors had been duped, their targeting systems disrupted. On the Elysium, Kale watched the council's confusion unfold in real time. Every time they try to predict us, he said, we remind them why humans are not easily predicted. They learn nothing from their failures, only frustration. That frustration will be their undoing. Leora nodded. And while they are distracted, we prepare the next phase. Phase 2 isn't about offense. It's about proving that humans are not intimidated by power. It's about showing them the essence of our species: creativity, resilience, and defiance. Meanwhile, across Earth and its colonies, the human population remained calm. Engineers and scientists were executing contingency plans with near-perfect precision. Ordinary civilians, unaware of the full scale of the conflict, continued to contribute in their own ways: students building prototypes, artists creating distraction holograms, and programmers developing AI systems capable of autonomous strategy. Every action, no matter how small, contributed to the larger gambit. Back in the council chambers, Zyro voiced the thought that everyone had been avoiding. We may have underestimated them, he said, carefully choosing his words. We assumed fear would dictate their actions. We assumed that the absence of centuries of interstellar warfare would limit them. But humans do not adhere to our assumptions. Threx's mandibles clicked angrily. They are nothing but a primitive species. They are still learning, still developing. How can they resist a fleet of this magnitude? Because, Zyro replied, they do not react the way we do. They do not fear. And when a species operates without fear, they cannot be easily subdued. The general's eyes narrowed. Then we change tactics. We overwhelm them. We will teach them submission. Zyro's expression hardened. Do you truly understand what you are up against? Overwhelming them may destroy ships, but it will not break their spirit. And the more you push, the more their ingenuity will manifest. Humans thrive under pressure. Every threat, every attack only sharpens them. Threx said nothing, but his claws clenched tighter. A seed of doubt had begun to grow, and for the first time in decades of command, he felt something unfamiliar: uncertainty. On the Elysium, Kale and Leora prepared their next maneuver. Phase 2 would exploit this underestimation, turning the Council's arrogance into opportunity. They deployed advanced sensor-disrupting drones that created false signatures of human fleets, manipulated energy signatures to simulate massive weapon discharges, and transmitted false strategic communications that suggested humans were planning multiple counterattacks simultaneously. The Council's fleet, trained to calculate and predict, faltered at every turn. Their systems were overwhelmed by too much data, too many variables, and a species that did not act according to expectation. And at the center of it all, the humans watched, adapted, and smiled. Kale looked out into the dark expanse, his voice low but firm. They will learn soon enough. Humanity is not intimidated by power. Humanity is not controlled by fear. And the Council has only just begun to understand that. Leora joined him, her gaze steady. They thought they could dominate us. They assumed fear would work. But humans respond differently. We do not bend. We do not break. We adapt. And we will continue to do so, always. The galaxy had declared war. Humanity had responded, not with panic, not with surrender, but with ingenuity, unpredictability, and the quiet confidence of a species that refused to be underestimated. And as the Council's fleet hesitated, overwhelmed by the very unpredictability they had ignored, it became clear: humanity's greatest weapon was not firepower, not technology, but the defiance and brilliance of the human spirit, the smile. Space, in its vast, silent expanse, often seemed indifferent to the struggles of the species that inhabited it. Yet now, as the Galactic Council's fleet loomed like a silver storm on the horizon of the solar system, humanity prepared to remind the galaxy that it was anything but ordinary. They had already outwitted, confused, and frustrated the Council at every turn, but this time humans intended to communicate something far more profound, a message that could not be misread. On Earth, the people worked tirelessly. The Global Space Command coordinated a massive holographic projection operation, merging art, technology, and sheer human creativity. Thousands of satellites, orbital stations, and space drones were synchronized, projecting an image across the void that would greet the Council's fleet as it approached. Captain Kale Varn and Chief Strategist Leora Zane observed the operation from the bridge of the Elysium. Kale's hands rested lightly on the railing, his eyes tracking the flow of data as billions of calculations aligned perfectly. "Are you sure this will have the intended effect?" he asked. Leora's silver hair shimmered under the light of the holographic interface. "It will," she said. "We've combined every optical and energy-based projection system available. When they arrive, they will see it clearly. and it will convey exactly what we want them to understand. Kale smiled faintly. Humans always leave them guessing until the last second. Let's see how the Council handles a little art. As the fleet entered the outer solar system, the Council's warships expected to see planets trembling under human fear, cities evacuated, fleets mobilized in panic. Instead, their sensors captured something entirely unexpected. An enormous, radiant holographic smile, suspended in orbit around Earth, stretching across millions of kilometers of space. It was simple, childish in its design. But in that simplicity lay a defiance so pure that it rendered the Council momentarily silent. General Threx's claws clenched over his console. What is this?" His voice reverberated in the command chamber. "They are mocking us?" Ambassador Zyral's 4 eyes narrowed as he studied the projection. "Not mocking," he said carefully, almost in disbelief. "It is a statement. A symbol of defiance. They are telling us we are not afraid." The holographic smile was accompanied by a series of messages, encoded in quantum signals, flickering like distant stars. Simple words scrolled slowly across the void. "We see your power. We see your threat. And yet we are unafraid. We do not cower. We do not beg. We do not surrender. We are human." The Council's fleet reacted instantly, but not with aggression. Confusion rippled through their ranks. Weapon systems misfired, scanners misread distances, and communication networks overloaded with the sheer audacity of what they were witnessing. On the Elysium, Kale and Leora watched the Council's hesitation. "They expected fear," Kale said quietly. "They assumed panic would guide our response. Instead they see this, and they don't understand it. That is our advantage." Leora's fingers danced across the console, monitoring the holographic integrity. "The projection is stable. Every ship in the fleet can see it. Every sensor, every camera. And it will stay that way until they comprehend its meaning." In the Council's central command chamber, Zyral's expression was unreadable, though a glimmer of respect flashed across one of his eyes. "The humans, they are not conventional. They are not predictable. And yet there is something more. This smile, it is not fear. It is confidence. It is pride." Threx's mandibles clicked in irritation. "Pride? They have no concept of our might. One strike and—" "They do not seek to intimidate us," Zyral interrupted. "They are showing us their essence. This is a species that thrives on challenge. One that converts threats into opportunity. One that responds to fear not with terror but with resolve." Earth's citizens, unaware of the minute-by-minute reactions of the Council fleet, continued their preparations. Schools, laboratories, and civilian workshops were working in harmony, all contributing to the collective defense. The projection of the smile was a visible metaphor. Humans were united, resilient, and unafraid of the unimaginable. Kale addressed the crew of the Elysium over the intercom. "Look at what we've created," he said, his voice calm but resolute. "This is not just a hologram. This is a statement to the galaxy. We are human. We do not break. We do not bend. And we will face any threat with ingenuity, courage, and defiance. Remember this, it is why we survive and why we are extraordinary." The crew, seasoned veterans of human ingenuity and diplomacy, nodded in solemn agreement. For them, the smile was more than an image, it was the embodiment of humanity itself. The Council attempted to respond, deploying probes and reconnaissance units to analyze the phenomenon. But the projection remained unyielding. Energy fields redirected any interference harmlessly, and the quantum encoding of the message made it virtually impossible to disrupt. Each attempt only reinforced the Council's realization: humans could not be intimidated by conventional means. Zyral finally spoke, his tone tinged with admiration. "They do not fear us. They convert our aggression into a demonstration of will. This is remarkable." Threx's reaction was different. He had been trained to intimidate, to dominate, to enforce obedience through fear. None of his strategies had prepared him for this. "This smile. It is defiance," he growled. "It is insolence. And yet, I cannot break it." As the fleet hesitated, humans quietly executed the next phase of their plan. Decoy fleets, sensor-disrupting drones, and defensive shields remained fully operational. They were ready to act at a moment's notice, but for now they allowed the Council to absorb the impact of the message. The smile itself was the first strike, not of weapons but of spirit. Kale watched the distant silver warships through the observation deck viewport. "They will remember this," he said softly. "The Council thinks power is enough to command obedience. They assume fear is universal. But humans, humans respond differently. And that difference will define us. Leora joined him, her gaze steady. They underestimated us. They assumed our weakness. They expected surrender. And instead we have given them a smile. Simple, undeniable, and powerful. That smile is our warning, our statement, and our identity. In that moment, the galaxy began to realize something crucial. Humanity was not just a species to be dominated, but a force to be reckoned with. A species capable of thinking beyond conventional limitations, of turning intimidation into inspiration, and of facing overwhelming power with courage and defiance. The Council's fleet had arrived expecting fear. They found instead a species that smiled, a species that adapted, and a species that would never be underestimated. And as Earth's holographic projection lingered in the void, brilliant and unyielding, the message was clear: humanity did not cower. Humanity did not submit. Humanity thrived. The solar system had become a stage. Not for war in the traditional sense, but for a display of intellect, strategy, and human audacity. The Galactic Council's fleet, with all its technological might, hovered like an unstoppable storm on the edge of the void. They had arrived expecting fear. Instead, they were met with calm, precision, and a message that could not be ignored. The unmistakable symbol of humanity, a smile, and the declaration that humans would not bend. Captain Cale Varn stood on the bridge of the Elysium, eyes sharp as he surveyed the Council's formations. Their ships were numerous, their weapons lethal, and yet, every calculation they made seemed to fall into a carefully crafted web of human strategy. They think the smile was just symbolism, Cale said quietly to Leora Zane, his second-in-command. They assume we are defenseless, that we will fight only with weapons. But humans are resourceful. We fight differently. Leora's silver hair caught the dim glow of the holoscreens. And they are about to find out just how differently. Humanity's next strike did not involve missiles, lasers, or bombs. It relied on intelligence, creativity, and improvisation. Across Earth and the colonies, engineers deployed the next phase of their plan. A network of AI-driven drones, wormhole projections, and energy field manipulations. These systems were designed not to destroy but to confuse, mislead, and outmaneuver the Council's fleet. Small, nearly invisible probes darted between the massive warships, emitting signals that created false sensor readings. Entire segments of the Council's fleet perceived phantom ships where none existed. They fired at targets that vanished the moment weapons struck. Shields were redirected, communications scrambled, and navigational systems overwhelmed. This is Phase 3, Cale said to the bridge crew. They think they can destroy us. Let's show them why that assumption is dangerous. Reyna Sol at the tactical console smiled faintly. Every attack they launch is wasted. They have no idea we've anticipated it all. In the Council's central command chamber, General Threx's frustration boiled over. Why are our weapons missing? Why do our strikes fail? His claws pounded the console with barely contained fury. They are cheating. Ambassador Zyro remained composed, though his eyes reflected concern. They are not cheating. They are using intelligence, creativity, improvisation. We have never faced a species like this, Threx. And that is why we are losing control of the engagement. Losing control? Threx growled. We outnumber them. Our fleets are superior in every metric. How can a species with barely a century of interstellar capability resist us? Zyro hesitated, his four eyes shifting in unison. Because, unlike other species, humans do not rely on fear, nor do they react predictably. Their strength is their ingenuity. They adapt. They improvise. They turn every challenge into an opportunity. Threx's mandibles clicked with irritation. Then we overwhelm them. They will adapt to that too, Zyro warned. Every escalation you attempt only strengthens their strategy. Humans thrive under pressure. This is what makes them dangerous. Meanwhile, on the Elysium, Cale coordinated the deployment of decoy fleets and sensor-disrupting drones. Entire sectors of space lit up with holographic human fleets, convincing the Council that humans were massing forces far greater than reality. Wormhole projections redirected ships into empty regions of space, while AI-driven probes intercepted communications, feeding false tactical data back to the enemy. The Council's warships moved as if blind. Sensors misread every action. Weapons fired at empty space. Coordinated attacks collided with holographic decoys. Even the most advanced ships, designed for centuries of interstellar warfare, struggled to operate under the chaos the humans created. Leora tapped rapidly on her console, adjusting quantum signatures. They don't understand our approach. They expect a conventional fight. They expect fear. And we are showing them neither. We are rewriting the rules and they are helpless to stop it. Earth itself became a silent partner in the gambit. Civilian satellites and orbital stations deployed holographic projections that created the illusion of massive planetary defenses and automated fleets. Children playing in space academies witnessed simulations that would, unknowingly, contribute to the real defense strategy. Humanity had turned creativity, play, and ingenuity into its greatest weapon. Kale addressed the crew over the intercom. This is what makes us extraordinary. Not numbers. Not firepower. But adaptability. Ingenuity. And the courage to face the impossible without fear. Every move we make now reminds the galaxy why humanity thrives where others falter. The crew, seasoned veterans of Earth's exploratory and defensive missions, nodded in solemn agreement. For them, the battle was more than survival. It was proof that human innovation could overcome any challenge, even against a technologically superior force. In the council chambers, the weight of realization began to settle in. Zyril spoke carefully, his voice tinged with respect. We assumed dominance, relied on overwhelming power, and expected submission. But humans do not submit. They convert threats into opportunity. They exploit every assumption we make. And they do so with a clarity we cannot match. Threx, for the first time, found himself unsettled. The species he had assumed primitive, inexperienced, and weak had turned every expectation against him. Every strike meant to intimidate or destroy had instead demonstrated human brilliance. We cannot underestimate them again, he muttered through clenched mandibles. Zyril nodded. Indeed. Underestimation is humanity's greatest advantage. They thrive when challenged. They grow stronger when opposed. And that is why they survive where others would fail. Back on the Elysium, Kale and Leora observed the effects of humanity's silent strike. The Council's fleet, large and imposing, was immobilized by confusion and miscalculation. Their numerical superiority was meaningless against human ingenuity. Every attack they launched was redirected, misread, or neutralized, not through brute force but through intelligence, strategy, and unpredictability. Kale gazed at the distant silver glint of alien ships, a calm determination in his eyes. They still do not understand humans. They assume fear drives us, weakness limits us. But humans thrive under pressure. Fear is not our tool. Ingenuity is. And that is what makes us unstoppable. Leora joined him, her voice steady. The galaxy has learned one lesson: humans cannot be controlled. Humans cannot be intimidated. And the more they attempt to dominate us, the more our brilliance shines. As the Council fleet struggled to regain control, humanity continued its silent strike, not with destruction but with strategy, adaptability, and courage. And through every holographic decoy, every wormhole projection, and every quantum communication, the message was clear: humans do not respond to threats with fear. They respond with intelligence, creativity, and defiance. In the quiet of space, the Elysium glided through the void, a symbol of humanity's resilience. The Council had arrived expecting war. Humanity had responded, not with weapons but with brilliance. And for the first time in the galaxy's history, the invaders began to realize that their might alone could not conquer a species that refused to be intimidated, refused to be predictable, and refused to be broken. The war had not yet been fought. But humanity had already won a victory far greater than any fleet could achieve. They had proven once and for all that their greatest weapon was not in their firepower, but in their spirit. The stars seemed to hold their breath. Across the void of the solar system, the massive fleet of the Galactic Council hovered in uncertain silence. Their once confident formation now flickered with hesitation, their ships arrayed like soldiers unsure of their orders. For decades, the Council had never encountered a species that could defy logic, predictability, and fear simultaneously. Yet here, in the face of humanity, they were beginning to understand their miscalculation. Captain Kale Varn stood on the observation deck of the Elysium, his eyes fixed on the distant glint of alien warships. The Council had come expecting fear, expecting chaos, expecting humanity to bend under the weight of superior firepower. Instead, they were confronted with precision, ingenuity, and a species that refused to be intimidated. Leora Zane stood beside him, her hands folded calmly. They've realized their numerical advantage means nothing here, she said softly. Humans are not predictable. Humans adapt. Humans endure. And that is what they cannot overcome. Kale nodded. They underestimated us. They assumed fear would control us. And they've learned the hard way that humans don't play by their rules. Across the Council's command fleet, General Threx's frustration had reached its peak. His massive claws pounded on the console as alarms blared across the flagship Empyrean. Holographic projections of human fleets, many of them decoys, danced in impossible patterns across the void, overwhelming even the most sophisticated targeting systems. Wormhole projections, sensor distortions, and quantum communications left the Council paralyzed, unable to act without risking catastrophe. They cannot be defeated conventionally, Threx muttered, mandibles clicking in disbelief. Every plan we execute, they adapt faster than we can anticipate. Ambassador Zyral's 4 eyes blinked rapidly as he studied the chaos. It is not their strength in numbers, nor their technology, nor even their weaponry that has confounded us, he said, his voice calm but tinged with awe. It is their spirit, their intelligence, their humanity. We have underestimated them at every turn, and it has brought us to this point. Threx growled in frustration. Then we retreat. If we continue, we risk losing more than pride. We risk total failure. Zyral's gaze softened, almost approvingly. Retreat may be wise. But remember, this species does not bend to intimidation. They will not be subdued by force alone. And that is the true lesson. On the Elysium, Kale received the Council's message. Their fleet was withdrawing, communication lines open with a tone of respect and acknowledgement. Captain Kale Varn of Humanity, the message began, transmitted across quantum channels. The Council acknowledges its miscalculation. Your species has demonstrated ingenuity, courage, and a spirit beyond our comprehension. We withdraw not in defeat but in recognition. Humanity, you are remarkable. Kale leaned back in his chair, a quiet smile forming. They finally understand, he said softly. They see what we've known all along. Humans do not respond to threats with fear. We respond with intelligence, creativity, and courage. Leora placed a hand on his shoulder. And they will remember this. The galaxy has learned something new today. Humanity is not a species to be underestimated. On Earth, people watched the alien fleet slowly retreat. The holographic smile that had welcomed the Council still floated in orbit, a symbol of defiance, ingenuity, and unity. Across the planet, celebrations erupted, not of war but of recognition. Humanity had faced an unprecedented threat and emerged not through destruction, but through brilliance. Children, oblivious to the complexities of interstellar diplomacy, cheered from schoolyards. Engineers and scientists high-fived in orbital labs. Citizens in every city felt a shared pride, the kind that comes from surviving, innovating, and proving that the human spirit cannot be intimidated. Kale addressed the crew over the ship-wide intercom. This is a victory unlike any other. Not won by firepower, not by brute force, but by ingenuity, courage, and spirit. The Council has retreated, but the lesson remains. Humans do not bend. Humans do not break. And humans will always find a way to survive, to thrive, and to shine. In the Council's fleet, General Threx seethed quietly, but even he could not deny the lesson learned. Ambassador Zyral approached, his expression calm yet reflective. Threx, Zyral said, we came expecting to intimidate, expecting to dominate, expecting compliance. Instead, we witnessed something extraordinary. The humans are remarkable, fearless, creative, unpredictable. They have turned every assumption against us. And we must respect that. Threx growled, but a reluctant acknowledgement passed through him. Perhaps, they truly are a species unlike any other. Zyral nodded. Indeed. And the galaxy will remember today. Humanity has announced its presence not through conquest, but through courage and brilliance. That is a rare thing. On the Elysium, Kale and Leora looked out across the stars, the Council fleet now retreating beyond the edge of the solar system. The void seemed calmer now, but the memory of the challenge lingered. Humanity had faced overwhelming odds and had not only survived, they had asserted their uniqueness to the entire galaxy. Kale turned to Leora. Do you think they'll return? Leora's eyes glimmered with thought. Perhaps. But they will return with caution. They've learned that humans cannot be predicted, cannot be intimidated, and cannot be broken by conventional means. That knowledge is powerful. Kale nodded. And it's ours. Humanity has not just survived today. We've reminded the galaxy why we thrive, why we endure, and why, no matter the threat, we will always respond with ingenuity, courage, and, he smiled, a smile. Back on Earth, the citizens celebrated quietly yet meaningfully. The holographic smile still hovered above the planet, a lasting symbol of resilience and spirit. Humanity had demonstrated its greatest strength, Not in weapons or technology alone, but in unity, intelligence, creativity, and courage. The galaxy had come expecting war. Humanity had responded not with surrender, not with fear, not with destruction, but with brilliance and defiance. And in that response, they had achieved a victory far greater than any battle could measure. They had earned respect. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy understood that humans were not just another species. They were extraordinary. They were unpredictable. They were resilient. They were intelligent. And above all, they were human.